Hello, my name is Allison Carmen, and welcome to my podcast, 10 Minutes to Less Suffering. And today I want to talk to you about the difference between resisting our problems, resisting the things that come up, resisting our feelings, and allowing them. And I really experienced this today. It was a beautiful day in New York City. It was almost 80 degrees, and I was sitting outside, really enjoying my day off, enjoying the peace, enjoying a nice cup of coffee. And then all of a sudden, I got a few phone calls. 2 phone calls were from both my daughters. They were both having a difficult time today with different issues. There were a few problems at work. There was something I read in the news. And all of a sudden, that peace that I had, that tranquility, I felt it leaving me. And as I was starting to list all the things that were on my mind, it just felt like too much. It's very hard sometimes to base our peace and our happiness on listing every issue we have and seeing if we could think about it differently. And I love all these processes that I talk about, but in that moment, I really didn't want to. And so I thought to myself, what can I choose in this moment to lighten the load? What can I choose in this moment to not feel so burdened and not feel so heavy? And I realized that the heaviness came from this feeling of resistance. I didn't want my daughters to be having a problem. I didn't want there to be the issues at work. I didn't want what I read about in the news. I didn't want these things to be happening, but they were happening. And I really didn't think it out. I didn't go into a detailed fear of what was going to be. I just realized I was resisting it. I wasn't allowing these things to happen because I just wanted that peaceful moment that I had 30 minutes earlier. But when I got to this place where I recognized it and I just allowed it, my body relaxed. And it wasn't like I was happy about all the things that had happened over those 30 minutes, but the tension within me was the story I was telling. It was resisting the things that were going on. It was wanting to feel different than I felt. And it was so interesting. The minute I allowed it all, nothing felt as bad. Nothing felt as pressured. And most of all, I sunk back into the moment. And that is always where our true power lies. We don't realize it, but we think we're being so forward thinking that we're going to take this problem and plan out for the future and manage this, act on that. But sometimes our energy is not where it needs to be, even if we're planning and acting for a future time. That resistance doesn't allow us to be our most powerful. We are most powerful when we allow. In the moment, we are most open. We are most creative. We are most forward thinking. We don't see how the resistance to what's happening shuts us down in a way. It makes us tense. It makes us worried. And it makes us think that we have control when we don't. Yes, there are decisions that we can make to influence things, to change things, but that resistance is like trying to shut the faucet off in the moment when it's flowing no matter what we do. So as I sat there and I just allowed the moment to be exactly as it was, and it wasn't as peaceful as the moment had been 30 minutes before, but it was a type of peace because I didn't feel like I was arguing with reality, arguing with the facts, arguing with what I was experiencing. And on some level, my energy returned, my head was more clear, my breathing was slower, and I had more clarity to deal with what I had to deal with, step by step, moment by moment, conversation by conversation. And I bring this up today because I know a lot of us are feeling pressure these days with COVID, with inflation, with upheaval in the world. We feel like there's stuff we need to take care of and the stuff we need to do for ourselves, for our families, for our communities. But how we show up for it really makes a difference, the perspective that we have. And like I said earlier, we could go through a lot of steps for each problem. Being grateful, thinking about maybe, taking a more expansive view. And all these things matter. But before we even get to that, we could shift our perspective on this higher level with a broader stroke when we look whether or not we're resisting, and we see whether or not we're allowing things to be exactly as they are. And again, it doesn't mean you're not going to change it, doesn't mean you're not going to work on it, but it's allowing the situation to exist as is in the moment. And what I also find happens is that we're just not allowing it to exist. We're also creating an energy to allow the solution, allow new thoughts, allow creativity, allow an opening to move towards. It's like we become more receptive to everything in life. We could relax our bodies, we could open our heart. Negativity doesn't creep up the same way, because sometimes we go into resistance and we feel things are impossible and they'll never change. But when we allow, it just feels different. It's like we open to the problem so we could see it differently, think about it differently, and solve it, maybe even better. And also what happens when we allow, we also kind of separate from the situation. There's something about resistance that makes us merge with our problems. It gets underneath our skin, and then we're in this stressed, worry state. But when we allow, we kind of move away from it. That was another interesting thing. The allowing allowed me to move away. And you see, you're not your problem. You see, you're not that experience. There's this awareness how things come and go. It allows you to go back to your center, your space within you. Distance is another lens. It gives you space between you and what's happening. Space to respond differently, to see it differently, to allow it differently. It makes us better at everything because we can maintain our own center, our sense of self, our clarity of thinking, because we are not that problem. Again, that fills us up with our power and gives us choice. Where do we want to invest in this moment? So it was so interesting watching all of this today, to separate from the problem, to allow it to be, to get that clarity. And I think that's how all of us could move through our days with so much more ease, because ultimately what we want is more ease and peace every day. Yes, we want to achieve our goals. Yes, we want to solve our problems. Yes, we want to have new experiences. But we really don't want to suffer through them. We all know there are going to be bumps. We all know there are going to be unexpected things. But the dance we have with life, the lightness, the smoothness, the allowing, really makes all the difference. Because you could achieve a lot in your life, but if you have to suffer every time to get there, then it's just going to keep taking more and more and more from you, dampening your spirit, dampening your joy, your peace, and taking so much away from the experiences of what it means actually to be alive. So I hope you think about this today. You think about that tenseness, that resistance that you feel when something happens that you don't like, and whether you could approach it a different way. Whether you could take a deep breath and say, I allow this moment to be what it is, and see what happens. See if the stress and worry settles. See if your body relaxes. See if you get some distance from the problem that you're facing. And what happens when you get that larger perspective? You might just find you show up with more ease and more grace, with better ideas. You might feel more peace every day. And you might just find that opportunities and possibilities become more abundant, become more clear. That the obstacles do not seem as great when you're not resisting everything that happens. It's like you're always opening the window and more air is coming in because you're allowing life to be as it is. And then you're in the flow. And when you start to be in the flow of life, that's when dreams come true. That's when our heart opens up, and that's when we feel the sacredness and the depth of what it means to be alive. So I hope you think about this, and I hope your days are filled with more ease and peace, because you deserve that. You deserve to be happy, you deserve to be joyous, and you deserve that flow of life, that every day is not hard. That we could feel more like we're moving with the current, and that current is taking us to places that we've always dreamed we would get to. Remember, uncertainty is your best friend, because if you don't know what happens next in your life, that means everything is possible, especially when we allow the moment to be exactly as it is. Thank you for listening to this podcast today. If you'd like to get in touch with me, you could email me at allison@allisoncarmen.com. If you'd like to buy my books, The Gift of Maybe or Year Without Men, they're available at all major bookstores and online retailers. And if you like this podcast, you can subscribe and leave a comment.